So originally I thought today's vlog was going to be all about how in D&D 5e there's no like maintenance or repairs or anything we need to do to our weapons and equipment. Maybe that's a little throwover from like being a video game guy and loving that element of some games and not seeing it in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. I thought that's what the video was going to be about today, and then I realized as I was thinking a little bit more about it that in fact what I really want to talk about in this vein is that it seems like natural ones don't mean anything anymore. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. I just felt like as I started thinking about the fact that, like, you know, why isn't there some requirement for a fighter at the end of the day to like sharpen their sword and fix their armor and so forth? I mean, in the real world, quote unquote, yeah, but this isn't a real world, it's a fantasy world, I know, but in the real world, you have to do those things or your equipment just dies, it just falls apart, it rusts, it becomes terrible. So I feel like we make a whole lot of assumptions when we're playing these ttrpgs, and after all, they're just games. Not everybody cares about that sort of thing. I get it. At the same time, I started thinking about the fact that, like, you know, I remember back in the day when I used to roll a natural 1 and sometimes it would be like, oh, well, guess what? You just broke your weapon. And then you were like, oh no, now what? And you had to hopefully maybe you had a spare weapon you could use, like, oh, well, that's why I carry this dagger around, because if my sword is hosed, then what else am I gonna do? You know, so there was always that joke of fighters carrying around tons of weapons, but like, it seems like there used to be a reason for that, and maybe it's just me. I feel like there was this sort of, you know, weapons had, if they weren't magical, it's like that was what the fighter, I guess you could say the barbarian, the, you know, rogue, and I mean, most of the melee characters, the ranger, like, we relied on that stuff. And I remember when I used to roll a natural 1, I was always like, oh no, you know, if I was a ranger or if I was playing, you know, a character that used a crossbow or a longbow, shortbow, whatever, I was like, oh my god. And if you were lucky, you just snapped the string and didn't snap the actual bow itself, or, you know, ruin it or something. Or if it was a weapon like a longsword, then you were kind of like, well, great, I guess I'll pull out that hand axe or what have you. And so there's something about that back in the day where when and maybe it had to do with critical role charts or something, like actual critical fumbles. Like when a natural 1 was rolled in combat, and I'm really speaking about natural 1s in combat here, when a natural 1 was rolled in combat, it didn't just mean that you miss. I mean, obviously it stinks to miss, but like, I feel like back in the day there was this sense that if you rolled a natural 1, there were going to be some really crummy consequences. Because when you rolled a nat 20, there were some really awesome consequences. You know, that something amazing happened when you rolled a nat 20. And back in the day, like, I mean, this is years ago when I was playing D&D, it felt like if I rolled a nat 1, something bad was going to happen. It wasn't just that I missed. At the very least, it would mean something like I tripped or I dropped my weapon. You know, things like that. And none of that, in my experience, none of that is really happening in 5e. It just doesn't. All the streams that I watch, all of the games that I've been a part of, and all the games I've run, none of that has ever come in. And I know you're probably thinking, you're like, but Gregory, there's like all these charts and, you know, tables and all that. Okay, sure, they're out there, and I'm certain there are games where people will homebrew critical fumble rules and tables and such. I just don't see it being very popular. I don't see it being like the norm. I don't see it being in the, you know, the greater public or the greater community, let's say, of the TTRPG, or for sure, let's call it the Dungeons and Dragons community. Because I don't know, is it just, does nobody care? Does nobody want that kind of challenge? Does nobody want to have those moments of like, you know, when you roll that natural one, you really need to think about like, oh God, what's gonna happen? Because it's just, it somehow took away from the fun of the game. I don't know, I realize this is sort of just a little bit of a rant today, but this is my vlog and this is why I like doing this kind of format of just talking and sharing my thoughts with you all. I feel like it's missing, like a natural one just doesn't matter. It's like, oh, you missed, sorry, next. What happened to the natural one that was like, you fall on your butt, or you break something, or something? I suppose there's a corollary with like critical hit tables of like, if you get critically hit, do you take a critical injury? And then there's that. I mean, so there's probably something to talk about that. You know, what can I say? It's 1 in 20 D&D for a reason. These are the things I love to think about. This video right here will help you think about all of this kind of stuff and more. Please remember to subscribe and share the videos. I hope to see you at a table someday. Keep rolling 20s, and remember, it's your game, play your way. I probably should have been wearing my Nat 1 shirt today, huh?